So, is this your favourite project that you've done?
To date, well, man, that's like choosing between your children, isn't it? But this project for me is great because it's my first touring around the country, you know. So we've been to 3 different locations already. This is my first solo exhibition in London as well. So, you know, it means a lot for me. It's, you know, it's a kind of turning point in my career. The garment, incredible, you know, 100% human hair, 100% hand knotted, made up of such a big team. You know, it's like humbling when you think, you know, your idea brings people together to achieve something that none of them could have done individually. We all needed each other to create this. So yeah, there's a lot that I really like about this project, and I'm really proud of it.
Oh, yeah, so how did you go from drawing to creating film?
Yeah, so I started doing drawing because it was what I had access to. It was cheap, right? You got some charcoal, got some paper, you can do what you need to do. But I always wanted to do more. I always wanted to explore different things. But I never really had the resources at the time or the training. So as slowly as I inched forward with my practice, I started exploring different media. But what's so nice is that I love doing things that I'm not trained in, because I feel like when you're not trained in it a certain way, then you're open to exploring it in a completely different way than if someone was to have taught you what you should and shouldn't do, right? So, for example, my first film, Chainmail 1, that was the first time I was ever on a film set. Was just on my own film set shooting it. I didn't know what was going on or, you know, how to do it. I just knew what I wanted it to be like. And I had great people around me, and I was blessed that, you know, people guided me. And then, yeah, this is now my 4th and 5th film, and 4th and 5th time I've been on the film set. Do you know what I mean? And we just learn how we go along. But I've worked with hair, chainmail, whatever material I want to do, I just give it a go and try, you know. And also, don't let things like not having experience in it scare you off it. Most people wouldn't do it because they haven't been trained in it. Go for it, you know, just go for it and try and spend time around people, or get whatever experience you can, and just make your work, you know. It will always be good because it's coming from you, you know, until you get out of the way and, you know, don't limit yourself and, you know, try to do different styles that you've seen somewhere else. Just get there, play, spend time doing what you want to do, and yeah, you'll be good.
So, like, with you being raised as a Rasta, yeah, how do you think it shaped you from your childhood up till now? Yeah, and also, before you go into that, can you skip a little bit what you said before about like your mom?
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I was raised as a Rastafarian, but I'm mixed race, right? So my mum's white, and what's interesting is it was actually my mum who raised us as Rasta. So my mum's dad was in the army. He was a major in the British Army, and in the Second World War he was fighting in Ethiopia, and he met Emperor Haile Selassie. He was called to Emperor Haile Selassie's court, and Emperor Haile Selassie gave him you know, like a certificate or a commendation. And so my granddad, who was Scottish at the time, well, is, you know, Scottish, after he came back, basically, he told my mum stories about Emperor Haile Selassie when she was a young girl, because he'd met her firsthand. And obviously he was a Scottish Christian, and Emperor Haile Selassie is Christian, so maybe they connected that way, but he was just in awe of this man, and said there was just something about him, and so I had to communicate that to my mum. And so when my mum was a little girl, she grew up hearing about ancient Ethiopia and Emperor Haile Selassie. So then when she got older and she came to London and she was into Rastafari and started, but she already had an idea of African history and Rastafari kind of from the horse's mouth, you know. So I feel proud that we're kind of part of that lineage. You know, my granddad met Emperor Haile Selassie. But then being raised as a Rasta, it was really formative for me, you know. It's in my core so much. And when I was younger, I took it for granted, you know. You just assume, oh, this is just who I am. But now as I'm getting older and I'm able to realize the different influences on my life, Rastafari is really, it's had a profound impact. And I feel really, again, lucky to be part of that legacy, you know. Rastafari is one of those things, for me, I think it was kind of a victim of its own success, in the sense that because Jamaicans are so charismatic and the culture is so rich, a lot of Rastafari became fashionable, and so a lot of the message got lost. So that's something where, you know, I tried to separate myself from the cultural elements of things that will show you that you're a certain way, and actually more just to the teachings and the essence of what I believe Rastafari is about, which is understanding that the negative systems or the the exploitative systems that are at play when it comes to large societies and civilizations, and how sometimes people can be exploited, different groups of people be exploited for the needs of a small minority that will never change, and how that twists your psyche and how that drains your energy and how that depletes you spiritually. And so for me, a lot in my work and just in my life as well, it's just interested in how these systems work and how we can better transcend them in that way. But even when you think about, when I was growing up, being plant-based or being ITAL, or what people call vegan now, it wasn't even a thing. It was just Rastas that were doing it, and no one else really understood it. And they would just always like take the piss. If I go around to a friend's house, they'd be like, so what do you eat? And they would just give you like a salad, or not even a good salad, or like overboiled vegetables or whatever, even at restaurants or whatever. And then when you're talking about meditation, that was never something that I was too into, but my dad was and my mum was, and obviously as Rasta, meditation is a real central theme, And again, everyone would poo-poo it or whatever. Now this is what everyone's doing on Instagram, or physical health, running, making sure you're out in nature, spending time in nature. Again, part of that meditation. Now everyone's wanting to do it, even when it's coming to herbs, Yeah, so even like, the use of herbs and that to heal you, right? So whether it's cannabis, which is now everyone's seeing the medical benefits of it, and it's becoming legalized here. Do you know how many Rastas were criminalized for that? Do you know how many Rastas were dissed by these people now who are all embracing it? Locked up, and their whole lives changed, and they still did it. It's not even like they did that and like, okay, I'm not gonna now. They kept it. They kept telling people, and they stuck to their guns, and they didn't care about any repercussions, because this system wasn't the ideal for them. For them to be high in this system, this Babylonian system, that wasn't the value. So that couldn't be held as some sort of thing over their heads, And for me, that's something that I'm so proud of, and I respect them for so much, because they knew that those truths, And now everyone is doing that. Everyone is, understanding the benefits of herbal remedies and whole foods. Whole foods, you can't go 1 second without, seeing a whole food shop somewhere. That's Rasta, do you know what I mean? And Rasta will never get the credit for that. Well, I mean, it will. Eventually it will. It has to, But at the moment, it's not connected, You just, everyone run up on their Instagram and talking this and that. But actually, the people who were at the forefront of that, when that wasn't cool, when everyone was still eating two meat and two veg or whatever, 1 meat and 2 veg and all of that stuff, Rasta were there, walking in their colours down the street, getting called whatever names, holding it strong and telling people of those truths, And I think also something that, excites me about Rastafari is it comes from ancient roots, right? Because it's interested in that ancient history. But it was born very recently, Emperor Haile Selassie was coronated in 1930. So it had time to apply these ancient teachings to a contemporary context. It knew what capitalism was. It knew what all of these systems were, in a way that the more ancient, like the original Christian books and Islam, they hadn't seen how technology had developed and how, they weren't in this empire period, whereas Rasta is. And so they were able to reset themselves and say, actually, no, we still need to distance ourselves from these things, in a way that other religions, they're more the status quo, so they'll still be, contributing to certain systems where Rasta separate themselves, and ultimately for me, to be able to live in nature, off the land, and to raise my children doing that, and to be living in part of a community where we're educated, but we're healthy, and we're living off the land, and we're connected to nature, and we've got that loving community, is still the core of everything that I would aspire to have, So Rastafari is, it's a big part of my life in that way.
Do you think that there's an element of that missing today?
Well, in life?
yeah, just in society really.
100%,
Influence
100%.
of Rasta.
100%, but I think the thing is that Rasta has to go through a transformation. Like I said before, there's too much of it that is, it's a fashionable thing. So everywhere I go now, people have locks, you know. And for me, the conversation of appropriation, you know, it's more white people doing things to black people, but actually it's a cultural thing. Do you know what I mean? If you're wearing locks because you understand spiritually what that means, and the whole thing of locks is separating from vanity. It's a mark of your mission, you know, and in the context where it was born, everyone had their shaved heads, everyone was conforming. So this was about non-conforming and not, I don't want to look pretty for you and your system. But now it's the complete opposite where people have it to be pretty. So I feel like Rasta has to go through an evolution of, and it's good because it means we have to look back at our cause and say, right, okay, what is our mission? You know, but yeah, for me, that's something that is a little bit frustrating, you know, like, and even the language, you know, so much of Rasta language has been co-opted into just the general language, you know, of the population. Even British people, it's like, yeah, wagwan, yes, blood, and all this stuff, you know, bless and all this. Then you're like, wait, why are you saying this? You're not even living that way, or you don't believe that. So like I said, I feel like there's a part of Rasta where it was a victim of its own success because, you know, so many of the ambassadors of it were so popular and so charismatic and beautiful people that people just want to represent that, and they want to say these things but not know what the core is. But yeah, I think Rasta principles is the center of any healthy organization. Even if people haven't heard of Rasta, do you know what I mean? You'll find a lot of parallels to other healthy communities. But for me as well, one thing that is important to acknowledge is that Rasta came out of pain, right? So there's a lot of pain that we still carry that we need to also shed and evolve past. So a lot of Rasta communities and a lot of individuals in the black community, working class communities, we're carrying a lot of issues as well with that, you know, and so we need to learn a way to separate that and have more time for community and loving in that way. Do you know what I mean? To really be there for each other, to really be vulnerable with each other, and to transcend a lot of the colonial things that we've absorbed without realizing it. You know, so for me, the homophobic stuff, I don't get it. You know, I'm not feeling that, and that was a very central part of how I was raised. You know, my dad didn't have time for any of that, and neither did a lot of the people I looked up to and all of that. But for me, I don't think that you can have a loving environment with that kind of hatred towards specific behaviors, you know. And again, in a way where if someone might do something else, we don't really have a problem with that in the same way where we might for certain issues. And so for me, that's something that we've picked up from other cultures that we need to get rid of. You know, for me, it's love and healing. That's the mottos that I take away from that. Anything else, I don't really have time for. And also, that's not my judgment. Do you know what I mean? Whatever might be happening after is for someone else to deal with. But for me, to be able to learn to be vulnerable with people and to truly love people and let myself go, you know, like a lot of Rastafari was built out of communities who didn't have that security to do that. So I didn't know any men who would be able to talk about their emotions in a certain way. No way. No way. You know, my dad, when my dad's dad died, he was so upset, but he left the house. This is when we were living in Ghana, and he went to live in the bush basically for 3 days, just alone with a kente cloth. He couldn't tell anyone, he couldn't express any emotions like that. For me, I feel like we need to, you know, transcend over that and really get down to the core of this love and being there for each other, you know.
What type of advice, guidance would you give to that young artist trying to come up?
Yeah.
Saying what's starting out, like what kind of advice would you give to them?
Yeah, to a young artist, I would say, wow. First of all, it's hard. You know, you need resources, and the resources aren't there. And so you'll spend a lot of your time looking for those resources, and that can get your psyche down. But the most important thing that I would say to any artist is, or this is just a reflection of my experience. One of the reasons why I've been this successful and will get more successful is because I have a disregard for my own well-being. So there's a lot of very talented artists and talented people, and beautiful people that I came up with who aren't in the arts anymore because they couldn't undergo certain poverty, certain pain, certain mental health problems, physical problems that I did. For me, that's not something to be celebrated. You have to look after yourself and be healthy because you don't get your body back, you don't get your mind back. And a lot of people in the arts and other realms of life glamorize this die hard, like, I'm grinding till I drop and nothing, and I'll push my friends away and I'll push my family. I don't care. You just got to grind. You got to stay focused. Don't care what anyone else says. No, not for me. You know, and the reason why I'm that way is because of certain issues, again, ancestral things. And, you know, I was raised in a certain environment. And so, and also maybe it's my nature, but, you know, I did a lot of damage to myself just from focusing too much, distancing myself from everyone just to focus and get that. And for a lot of people, that's what you need, because unless you've got a rich mum or dad, you know, you're competing with people who have got that backing. So you have to go without, you have to accept different things. And that's what I did, but I wouldn't encourage people to do that. Know your lines, know your limits, look after yourself, you know, understand your bottom line in life. What do you want? Is it happiness or is it material things? Is it, you know, I'm not saying you can't get them all, but just, you know, don't always compromise yourself in a way that you don't need to or you don't feel comfortable to. Different people have different lines, so I can't say what lines there, but a lot of people glamorize people who put ambition before their own health, and I don't agree with that. Just as a summary again, like as a young artist, understand your bottom line, innit? Do that work on yourself, work out your own feelings and emotions and know what you want in life, innit? Sometimes you might come up with a decision where it's like, oh, this relationship's getting in the way of my work. That relationship could be your whole future, do you know what I mean? But then again, that could be right. That relationship is getting in the way of your work. You just need to know your own boundaries, do you know what I mean? But also, yeah, ask questions, know what you want to do, and also just words of encouragement. As a creative, your job is a visionary. So you see things that other people don't. That's your view, right? That's your value. And in a lot of ways, like for me, one of the biggest frustrations I had is that no one sees what I see. And you have to ask people for permission because they have the money. And so you have to convince people of things that they can't see. And a lot of the times you'll question yourself, or you're like, wow, am I just crazy because they don't get it? But that's not their job to get it, you know? So stand strong in the ideas that you have, because your vision is you. That's what you are. You don't have to press every button. You don't have to know how to work every camera. There's people to do that. That's not where the art is. The art is in the vision, you know? And so you have to believe in your vision. Question it, or you question yourself. You'll be your biggest critic, right? And you need to question that. But don't let external people put pressure on you in a way that, because they can't see it. It's not their job to see it. Do you know what I mean? It's your job to see it.
Where can people find your work and you reach out to you, get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can look at my stuff on my website, it's amarteygolding.com, and you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's Amartey Golding, AmarteyGolding. Yeah, and please do reach out as well. I appreciate it.